Ice cream truck makes Instagram stars pay double. Bar owner takes out influencer for asking for free drinks. I'm sick of influencers asking for free cake. You guys voted for me to talk about this hot potato of a topic last week, so brace yourselves, here we go. Hi everyone and welcome to Wing It Wednesdays, the cook and chat show where I talk about life as a food blogger while cooking something up and having the occasional existential crisis. And today I'm making pumpkin pie while talking about influencers asking brands for free stuff. Potential yikes. Please ignore the tiny pumpkins, you're not going to need them for this recipe as it calls for canned pumpkin. I just got them because they're cute. Now just before we dive into today's topic, you can find all the ingredients I used for this pumpkin pie listed below in the video description box. I used my own short crust pastry recipe, which you can also find on my website tashcakes.com. But for the filling I just modified Libby's famous pumpkin pie recipe, which originally came from the back of a can of Libby's pumpkin purée. The only changes I made really were adding nutmeg to the other spices, plus a tablespoonful of cornflour to the pumpkin mixture for a firmer set that's easy to slice. I've been using this recipe for years and it's never failed me. Right, hot potato topic time. When you hear about influencers asking brands for free things, does your blood boil? Do you imagine self-obsessed, entitled freeloaders trying to con hard-working brands out of their stock? Or do you think of them as advertisers, photographers and marketers carving out their own careers? If you thought of the first thing, you're absolutely right. If you thought the second thing, you are also right. Let me explain. Once somebody becomes an influencer, whether on purpose or, like in my case, accidentally, they become a walking potential billboard. Because they have lots of eyeballs on them, and people who come to trust the things they say in life and portray online. This means that whatever they post about, people will then potentially see that and go, I fancy some of that, and go buy it for themselves. This, in a nutshell, is influencer marketing. Now the issue some people have with this is how to quantify the success of influencer marketing. It's easier when an influencer has a dedicated web link or discount code that they can then give to their followers, where sales can be directly traced to their post about something. Things get a bit murkier when sales can't be traced this way, and it's more about giving a brand exposure. But then brands can spend an eyeball-popping amount of money every year on adverts, whether that's for TV or those annoying flyers given out at train stations. And those kinds of adverts pretty much work the same way, that is, putting the brand in front of eyeballs and spreading awareness. In that sense, influencers can be a kind of independent advertiser. It's a real profession, however much people still like to sneer at it, and isn't really an easy one either. You'd be surprised at how much of a grind it is, but that's a story for another day. So now that we've chatted about what influencer marketing is and its benefits, what's the problem with influencers asking brands for free products, invites, stays at hotels, etc. in order to market them? The main problem, it seems, lies with individual influencers and the way some of them go about it. I've thought about this within 3 comparable scenarios. Scenario 1, turning up to a job interview without a portfolio. You can also look at this like pitching an article idea to a magazine without a portfolio of your previous work. When you go in for a job, whether it's working for a company full-time or for a client as a freelancer, you know they're going to want to see what experience you already have and the value you brought to your previous ventures. You can't just rock up to an interview or pitch meeting asking to be hired without proving that you know what you're doing. The company wants to know that they're investing their money on someone who'll provide results. It's the same when an influencer contacts a brand asking for a freebie. Are they asking for the product and in return laying out the exact return the brand can expect? What past similar brands they've done this for? Why it was successful? What expertise they can bring to the table and the reasons why this could benefit the brand? Or are they literally just saying, hey Han, love your products, I'm an influencer, would love to feature your product on my page, heart emoji, smile emoji. If you give me XYZ, I'd be willing to give you a shout out on my page. Unfortunately, it seems like there are many in the latter camp, and it's presumptuous enough to approach a brand like this as a big-ish influencer with big numbers, Unless of course you're like a Kardashian and you're a super influencer, then your reputation already speaks for itself. But it's become a problem with small influencers too. And I say this as a small one myself. I just have around 10,000 followers. That's not much at all when you think about it. But I'm hearing about a lot of would-be small influencers, just a few hundred followers, messaging brands for free stuff. That's like leaving school at 18 with no history of work experience, marching straight into a building and asking to be a marketing manager. However, what if an influencer only has a few hundred followers, but takes some of the most beautiful photos you've ever seen, and does have a genuine engagement on their page? If they send that prospecting email with examples of their work, and a clear goal of what they want to achieve, I think as long as they're professional and polite in their message rather than demanding, is there anything wrong with that? I don't think so. That's why I think this scenario in particular should be looked at in a case-by-case basis. Sadly, I don't think that there are many influencers that are truly, genuinely like that last one I mentioned, particularly the newer ones looking to blow up fast and use whatever shortcuts necessary, which unfortunately steps on genuine influencers and takes opportunities away from them. But such is the way of life, and like I mentioned in my previous video about authenticity, there'll be exploitation wherever there's opportunity, wherever you go. Scenario 2. Inviting yourself to a party. If someone's having a party and you haven't been invited to it, but you then ask if you can come, can you honestly tell your friends that you were invited to it afterwards? This one's a bit of a sticky one because I can already hear a lot of people saying, sure you can. But in my socially awkward brain, if I haven't been invited somewhere, I haven't been invited. And even if I asked to go, which I wouldn't because, well, social awkwardness, I wouldn't count myself as having been invited. I'd think of it as having invited myself. So there's a bit of a stink on Instagram in particular at the moment with influencers marking their posts as invites, when actually the brand hasn't discovered them on their own and reached out to them. They've actually reached out to the brands and asked them for an invite. There's quite a fierce divide on whether it's legit to call this kind of transaction an invite or not. I'm afraid I'm kind of on the team not legit side for this one, especially as it's a bit misleading to non-influencer followers and indeed other brands. You just see the label invite and think, wow, they're so popular, everyone's inviting them to everything. Whereas actually they haven't been discovered in their own right. I'm not sure what would be a more transparent way of labelling this though. What do you think? Comment with your suggestions below if you have any. It's super gratifying to have a brand reach out to you as an influencer for the first time, with them having discovered and liked your work for themselves and seen how it could benefit them. A small, mean part of me feels like new influencers who bypass this rite of passage just to ask for free stuff straight away haven't really earned it. Just a quick pumpkin pie interjection. I pre-baked the large pie shell, but I did not pre-bake the mini ones because I wanted to experiment, and both turned out equally good. Scenario 3. Being unable to handle rejection. I'm sure we've all seen those Tinder screenshots by now, of people, a certain type of guy in particular to be honest, messaging a girl, the girl turning the guy down, and then the guy responding with something like, whatever lol, you're ugly anyway. That's pretty much what that influencer asking the bar did. He asked, the bar said no, and he responded by basically calling them irrelevant. Pretty crappy move, right? And certainly far from professional. It's exactly this kind of influencer that the media love to report on, and that people love to hate. And unfortunately, it's this kind of influencer that puts all of us otherwise hardworking bloggers in a bad light. It's because of people like them that, when it came up in a group of friends that I have a food blog on Instagram, one of the friends responded with, "Oh, so you're an influencer," in that kind of tone. She was looking at me as if I had the words egocentric freeloader stamped on my forehead, I swear. But as with anything, there's always a group of people who spoil something for everyone else, which is kind of what this kind of influencer is doing. Talking to some friends who actually work in the food industry, It seems like the rudest influencers are often the big-ish ones who have a bit of a "don't you know who I am" vibe, and the really small ones who hide behind the condescending phrase "you don't know how social media marketing works." Yeesh. So what's my personal opinion on influencers asking for free stuff? On the whole, I don't like it, and I've never done it myself. I feel like unless you're such a big influencer that you're a household name, or you have the stats from your sales to back it up, it's a bit disingenuous. And sure, the old adage goes, if you don't ask, you don't get, but that shouldn't give people a free pass to be a**s about it. I especially don't like it when people ask small independent brands for free stuff, even before the quote, current times that we're in, unquote. It was tough enough to be a small business. I feel it's distasteful for influencers to target small brands who need their stock to sell and can't afford to risk potential profit on a potential fake or poor quality influencer. It's really broken my heart to hear how an increasing number of influencers were asking small brands for freebies at a time where everything was shut down and brands are struggling just to exist. It's heartless. Even worse is when these influencers pretend that they're just doing it to support these brands. You know what would really support them? Buying their stuff so they don't go out of business. How about that? It's a whole other thing if a brand reaches out and asks to give you something because they like your work. Then they've made that decision themselves and are acknowledging that, yes, you do have marketing value to them. Of course, this opens up a can of worms about transparency, but again, another story for another time, and one I may pick up on in my next week's video about brands who commission work from influencers without intending to pay for said work, especially bigger brands. Anyway guys, that's my take on the whole subject. Apologies if you heard any banging or clicking sounds in the background. My new microphone works a bit too well, so it does pick up my neighbours bashing around. So that's the thing. Anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. I hope you enjoyed today's video and found something in it useful. You can find all the ingredients that I used today listed below, as well as a link to my Instagram page, Tash Cakes Tastes, and my original recipes blog, tashcakes.com. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to see more recipes and hear more about blogging from a blogger's point of view. Comment down below if you'd like me to talk about anything in particular, and I'll see you guys later. Stay safe, be nice, and have a good week.